ve'amatz. Be strong and courageous. I'm Mirala Goldsmith. I'm the co-chairperson of Jewish Earth Alliance. And I am so happy to welcome all of you tonight. Just seeing you is giving me a lot of chizuk, a lot of strength. Jewish Earth Alliance is a network of organizations and individuals raising a strong Jewish voice for climate solutions to the federal government. We're proud to have 47 local and national Jewish organizations as our partners. We're an all-volunteer organization committed to doing the work that will make it easy for you to get involved and have an impact. Right now, it's a hard time for the Jewish people. Many of us are deeply worried about friends and family in Israel, the painful loss of life in Gaza, and the rise in anti-Semitism in this country. Despite these terrible circumstances, we are determined to continue our work advocating for solutions that will protect all of us from the impacts of the worsening climate, heal the web of life, and reverse the damage to our sacred planet, the common home of all people. I'm so grateful that we are here together tonight. As you sit at home in front of your computer, take a moment now to feel the presence of so many others who share your passion and commitment. Together, we can do this. Wave to me if you heard me say, together we can do this. That's right, that's right. Tonight, we're starting to get ready for Tu B'Shvat, the Jewish Earth Day, and our Tu B'Shvat virtual lobby day, which falls on January 25th this year. Let me just tell you what's going to happen tonight. Dr. Moshe Kornfeld will start us off with words of Jewish wisdom. We'll hear from Dr. Katharine Hayhoe, and then after some questions, Rabbi Melanie Aaron will brief us on the legislation that we'll be supporting on Tu B'Shvat. And then Judy Berlfein will lead us in taking action together. Before tonight's program is over, we hope that you will sign up to lobby with us. The more of you that join, the more impact we can have. Now let's get started. We're excited to hear from Dr. Moshe Kornfeld. Moshe is an environmental educator and cultural anthropologist who has focused on the intersection of religion, environmentalism, and politics in American Jewish life. Perfect for us. He's the cantor of Congregation Rodef Shalom in Denver and the founder and director of our partner organization, Colorado Jewish Climate Action. Dr. Moshe Kornfeld.
Okay, hello. I'm honored to be joining you today and to be sharing the Zoom room with the esteemed Dr. Katharine Hayhoe. And I'm very grateful to the Jewish Earth Alliance for creating this space. My name is Moshe Kornfeld, and as Mirala said, I lead Colorado Jewish Climate Action, a group devoted to bringing climate action to the forefront of the Colorado Jewish communal agenda. In this role, I'm often asked, why Jewish climate action? This question is even more salient at this profoundly challenging moment when our communities are preoccupied with questions of security, identity, morality, and belonging. The climate crisis is here and now and represents an existential threat to ecological systems and to human health and wellness. In light of this threat, all individuals and communities have a responsibility to make meaningful contributions to climate solutions. We do not have the luxury of time and must continue to push forward even as our hearts are breaking. Along with groups such as Jewish Earth Alliance, Dayenu, and Adama, I take pride in providing opportunities for Jews and Jewish institutions to engage in climate action. In addition to believing that all communities must find a way to contribute to climate action, I also believe that faith groups are poised to make a unique and necessary contribution to the broader climate movement. I believe this is because one of the key features of religion is that at its best, it creates a framework within which people can move beyond their self-interest in order to work for the greater good, to serve a higher purpose. Before founding Colorado Jewish Climate Action, I spent a decade in the academy as an anthropologist, teaching courses on religion, environmentalism, and politics, among many other topics, and researching and writing about American Jewish life. I'd like to share one of my favorite theories with you, which comes from Roy Rappaport, a 20th century luminary in the fields of ritual and ecological anthropology. Rappaport argues that language and religion co-evolved. When humans developed the capacity to speak, they also developed the capacity to lie. Religion and the belief in the supernatural kept people honest, fostering cooperative rather than self-interested behavior. And so while there are many examples of maladaptive expressions of religion, religion is ultimately a key adaptation that encourages pro-social cooperative behavior. Communities of faith encourage us to seek a higher purpose, not only for our own generation, but also with reverence for our ancestors and a commitment to our own descendants. The concept of Lador Vador, from generation to generation, serves as a framework for seeing ourselves as profoundly responsible to our ancestors and to our descendants. And yet, while religion enables cooperation, its Western expression has also contributed to our environmental problems. In The Historical Roots of Our Ecological Crisis, a seminal essay written in 1967, historian of science Lynn White asserts that Judeo-Christianity is the most anthropocentric religion, or expressions of religion, the world has ever known. In Western Judeo-Christianity, White argues the natural world is held up as an object to be used and abused. It is this deep cultural view that has enabled us to soil our nest and to act in profoundly destructive ways. White encourages us to reclaim those voices within our traditions that re-sacralize the natural world, pointing in particular to St. Francis as a key Christian historical figure who imagines the natural world not merely as an object, but as an animated religious subject alongside and interconnected with humankind. It may come as no surprise that climate hero Pope Francis chose this saint for his papal name. Those of us working in the Jewish tradition need to reclaim figures such as Rabbi Abraham Isaac Kook and Rabbi Nachman, alongside our ancient agricultural system of Shemitah, the sabbatical year, Yovel, the Jubilee, and the agricultural rules that place justice at the center of our approach to living sustainably on the land. We need to reclaim those voices as we work to undermine the still prevailing view that the natural world is merely an object. Dominion of humans over nature is at the heart of capitalist exploitation of the natural world, and it is our job to assert stewardship as our guiding moral and economic principle. And perhaps we should take these ideas even further as we work to flatten the egocentric hierarchy that is at the root of our ecological crisis. Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi points to the Yizkor and to the memorial services when we pray that God will add the souls of our departed loved ones to the Tzror HaChaim, to the chain of life. Schachter Shalomi asserts that this is a hint that guides us to rethink and replace the hierarchical great chain of being as our core model for understanding our world with a great chain of life that enfolds everything from the microorganisms that keep our planet alive to the planetary intelligence of which they are a part. Faith communities have a central role to play in the deep cultural work of the climate movement. Together, we can inspire people to rethink the hierarchies that enable our planet-destroying practices. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May the source of our strength help us to do the sacred and holy work. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Moshe, for your most inspirational comments and many ideas for us to think about. I'm Phyllis Blumberg, and I am co-chair of the upcoming Lobby Day on Tu B'Shvat in January. And I'm very happy and honored to be introducing Dr. Katharine Hayhoe. To Dr. Hayhoe's many fans who are present tonight on Zoom, she needs little introduction as we followed her books and her many speeches. But for Katharine's future fans, here are some interesting facts about her. Dr. Katharine Hayhoe is an atmospheric scientist whose research focuses on understanding the impacts of climate change on people and the planet. She's the chief scientist for the Nature Conservancy, where she leads and coordinates the organization's scientific efforts. Further, she's a tenured professor, I don't know how she does all of this, at Texas Tech University, and has received numerous awards and recognitions for her work, including being named a United Nations Champion for the Earth. Thank you so much, Dr. Hayhoe, for coming tonight, and we all look forward to hearing from you.
Explain how that appeal process will work with the
Thank you, Phyllis. It's great to be here with you. If you haven't muted, I think a few people haven't, you might want to. Otherwise, we're listening to your conversations too. But it is great to see so many people. There's 92 people right now on the call. So I'm going to share a little bit of my thoughts on the way I often hear and see people talking about climate change these days, and then we're going to take questions. And I'm going to begin, first of all, with, I like to use an interactive polling tool called Poll Everywhere. You can use it on your computer or you can use it on your phone. I put a link there in the chat, and I'm just going to share my screen as well, so that if you're using your phone, you can use this QR code. So if you've got your phone there, what you just do is you just open up the photo app in the phone and you point it at the square, and a little yellow thing will pop up on your phone. If you have an iPhone, I'm not sure what color it is if you don't, and you click on it, it'll take you right to this. But if you're on your computer, then you can just click on the link in the chat there. And I like to use this because it's a way for me to hear from you as well as you to ask me questions. So when you go there, and if you want to type it in, you can too. It's pollev.com/Katharine, but you just have to spell it with 2 A's. There we go. I wanted to start with something super easy, which is just repeating what you already put in the chat, except this is a different way to look at it. Where are you joining from tonight? I would just love to see the map. And I would like to be clear, I am not on the blue part. I am in the white part right now. I am at home in Canada for Christmas. So if you are not on the blue part either, that's okay. Just click off the map in the direction that you're in, and we will understand that. It looks like there's somebody in a boat off the coast of Florida. Oh, Mexico, I think, yep, Fred, you're in Mexico. I think I saw that in the chat. Excellent. We got a lot in Florida, a lot in northeastern US, a few in the Chicago area. I would ordinarily be in Texas, so I would have clicked Texas if I was talking to you earlier. A good number from California, Oregon, Washington State. Excellent. Colorado. Great. Okay. So that was the easy question, but now I have a hard question for you. And it's hard because you have to answer with a word, only one word, any word you want, but just one word. And this next question I want to ask you is, when I say climate change, how do you feel? When I say climate change, how do you feel? In just one word. Now, the first time I ever asked anyone this question was 2 years ago when my book Saving Us came out. The first talk I was giving was to a group of mothers at a science museum in Utah. And I thought to myself, well, I wrote this book to answer the #1 most common question I get, which is, where do you find hope? But do these people really want to know that? So I asked them this question. And you know what? I don't think you could tell the difference between your answers and the answers I got there. Since then, I have asked architects, healthcare professionals, high school students, Catholic nuns, botanical artists. You can see there's a wide variety. The Knitting Guild that I'm speaking to next. And I don't think I've ever seen, in fact, I know I haven't because I'm a scientist, so I've analyzed this. I have never seen a statistically significant different response than what I'm seeing here. 90 to 95% obviously negative words. And so when I see these anxious, terrified, scared, worried, concerned, overwhelmed, angry, frustrated, fearful, stressed, when I see these words, I think there's two, and actually three, really important things to know. The first thing to know is that if you feel this way, you're not alone. And I'm going to show you this. Now, what I'm going to do is for the rest of the time I'm speaking, I'm going to leave this open. And you can put in your question at any time, but the fun part is you can upvote the questions you most like. So I'll remind you as we go along, because I need your help. We're going to address, yes, exactly. We're going to address the questions that you are most interested in. You can put them in here at any time. But when you ask people around the world, are you worried about climate change? Look at this. The majority of people are worried, and the only places that people are not over 60%, because red is over 60%, not 50. The only places that people are not over 60 are places where literally you are worried about the safety of your children or the ability to put food on the table the next day. And that is certainly the case for Israel today. When we have an urgent crisis confronting us, that is what our attention has to be focused on. But what I know about climate change is it is the hole in the bucket. In other words, if we don't fix climate change, we will never be able to address the sources of geopolitical conflict in our world. We will not be able to address issues of poverty or hunger. We will not be able to empower women, especially in low-income countries. We will not be able to provide basic things like basic healthcare, clean water, basic education in some of the poorest places in the world. This will not be possible if we don't fix climate change. So I think of it sort of as if, you had an accident and you've shattered a limb and you're in the emergency room. And obviously they have to mend the shattered limb. But while you're there getting your scans, you discover that you have this slow growing tumor that's been growing away for years and even decades. If you don't address it long term, you're never going to get better from anything. So if you feel this way, first of all, number one, you need to know you're not alone. The majority of people feel this way. The second thing you need to know, if you feel this way, is it is not a mental health condition. Rather, it is a rational response to what the science says. If you actually understand how we're conducting an unprecedented experiment with the only home we have, then we should be worried and anxious and frustrated with the lack of action. I don't think you can understand what's happening and not feel this way. So it is an entirely rational response. That's the second most important thing I want you to know. First of all, the majority of people feel this way. Second of all, that it's a rational response. Now, let me explain a little bit more why it's a rational response. I think we have George drawing on my screen here. I'm not quite sure how he can do that, but maybe somebody else could turn it off. Very interesting drawings though, George. Before I go on to the third thing, though, I want to dig a little bit deeper into this. Why should we be worried? Well, it's because we're seeing changes happen much faster than we ever had before. We have never seen this planet warming this fast with this much carbon going into the atmosphere, and it's never happened with 8 billion people on the planet. That's why we're worried. And not only that, but it's not just sort of a scientific curiosity over what's happening to the global average temperature. This is literally affecting the air that we breathe, and we can't live without air. It's affecting the water we drink. It is affecting the food that we eat. It's affecting the buildings and roads and systems that we use. It's affecting the nature that surrounds us and nurtures us and provides the foundation for our life. So when I talk about this, I make it clear it's not about saving the planet as if it's like the people or the planet, the environment or the economy. That's a completely false dichotomy. There's no profit on a dead planet, and people cannot float around in outer space without the resources this planet provides. So that's why when I talk about this, I talk about how it's about saving us. And I really appreciate what you pointed out about Judaism and Christianity being very human-centric and anthropocentric religions. Because when I say us, I'm talking about all living things on this planet. Nature does not need us. We are the ones who need nature. We cannot survive without it. And it's not a case, again, of saying environment or the economy. It's a case of it's either all or nothing. Not only that, but we're experiencing it now in our everyday lives. People often refer to this issue as global warming, but I like to call it global weirding. Why? Because wherever you live, and I just had a conversation with somebody today about this, we were talking about how unseasonably warm it was, and he said, I hate it. I want Christmas to feel like Christmas. What happened to winter? I said, well, funny that you should ask me that. I can explain. Things are getting weirder. Wherever we live, conditions are getting weirder. And the way I think about it is as if we had a pair of dice. We always have a chance of rolling a double six naturally, a heat wave, a drought, a storm, a flood. But as the world warms decade by decade, it's like it's sneaking in and taking one of these numbers and then another one and turning it into another six. And then it's even putting some sevens and some eights on the dice. So we could still roll a 1, a 2, or a 3, but the number of sixes and sevens and eights that are showing up are increasing year after year. And we see that our droughts are more intense, our heat waves are more dangerous, our wildfires are bigger, our hurricanes and storms are stronger. And over time, we see that these are ticking up. So back in the 1980s in the US, there was $1 billion weather or climate disaster on average every 4 months. Now, you know, sometimes they'd be two closer together and then a longer pause in between. Accounting for how the value of the dollar changed, because obviously the value of the dollar has changed since the 1980s, accounting for that, there was one every 2.8 weeks in the 2010s. And this past year, we haven't quite finished the year yet, but it was pushing every 2 weeks. 2023 was one for the record books. Seawater off the coast of Florida reaching hot tub level temperatures. The wildfires in Hawaii, the wildfires in the Northwest Territories, the wildfires in the Canary Islands, the heat waves, the droughts, the floods. And so everywhere I went on social media, I saw people saying this. Everywhere I went, if this isn't enough, nothing will be. If the Hawaii fires aren't enough, if the Northwest Territories fires aren't enough, if this heat wave isn't enough. And every single time I started to feel like a broken record. I responded every single time I saw this and I said, it isn't because we're barking up the wrong tree. We think that this is what the world looks like. We think that we're worried. Clearly, we're worried. I asked you, you were very clear. We are all worried. And so we think everybody else who doesn't want to talk about it is not worried. But here's the thing. If you're worried about something, but you don't know what you can do about it, if you feel helpless and hopeless and don't know what to do, which is half of America, according to polling data, do you want to talk about it? Most people, the answer is no. I do not enjoy talking about things that make me feel hopeless, helpless, and I don't know what to do anything about. So as a result, we do nothing and we assume that people are not worried. And so when we think most people aren't worried, that's when we think, oh, the Hawaii wildfires are what they need to be worried. If they just knew how bad it was, they would get worried. So climate changes and we get worried. And what we do is we load up on all the true, accurate, and factual information on how bad it is. And I'm full of that information. I could go on for hours about how bad it is. We unload it on people. And we wait for them to spring into action, but that doesn't happen. There's actually more paralysis and more inaction. And to understand why, there is a brilliant book by Tali Sharot. She's a neuroscientist. She wrote a really good book called The Influential Mind. And in it, she explains that fear and anxiety cause us humans to withdraw, to freeze, to give up rather than take action. So climate just changes more. But now, what if this isn't how we are? According to polling data, this is not what the world looks like. According to polling data, we look like this. So there's a small fraction, about 20% in the US, who claim they're not worried. Now, I would just like to give you an update. 42% of registered Republican voters in Texas are worried about climate change. When we're getting to the tipping point, we're almost at 50% of registered Republican voters in Texas. You know you're getting close. So there is still a small fraction that say they're not worried. Those are probably the 58% of registered Republican voters in Texas, maybe a few other states too. Then we have a group that's activated. What percent do you think are activated? According to the Yale public opinion polling data, that number is 8%. 8. So that means we have about 60% of people who are worried but not activated. Now, let me ask you this. Is it more important to move the yellow into the blue or the blue into the green? Well, we could move everybody into the blue, but if they didn't know what to do, they'll do nothing. And we'll all be worried and nothing will happen. So if we shift our frame and we realize our purpose, our goal, our primary focus is to move the blue into the green, that's a totally different approach. If people are already worried, panicked, and paralyzed, more more scary information, true and factual scary information, what's it going to do? Well, Tali told us, it is going to cause us to withdraw, to freeze, and to give up. So what do we have to do? We have to realize that there's two things keeping people in the blue zone that would help. If we address them, it would move them to the green zone. And the two things are, they haven't connected their head to their heart, number one, and they haven't connected their heart to their hands, number two. So they've got a lot of stuff up here, all the facts, all the data, they understand how bad it is, they're worried. But we haven't connected it directly to what we care about ourselves and our hearts. And that for many of us is where our faith comes in. And then we have to connect what's in our hearts to our hands, how we can make a difference. So I have proof for you that this is the problem. So the head to the heart is called psychological distance. It's our human defense mechanism where when we feel like we don't know what we can do about something, we push it away from us. We say, well, it's going to matter in the future, not now. Or it matters to those people over there, not here. Or it matters to that type of person, but I'm not that type of person. Let's look at some data. This is the US. Do you think that global warming's happening? Anywhere that's orange is greater than 50%. And the darker orange, more people say yes. So people are pretty good on it's happening. Will it affect plants and animals? How is that distant from us? Well, we're not plants or animals, so to speak. So we're thinking that it's nature that's going to be affected, not humans, not realizing that obviously humans are part of nature. What about future generations? Sure, it'll affect future generations. What about people who live over there? Yeah, it'll affect people who live over there. And then they asked, will it affect you? That's the head to the heart connection that's missing. So how do we address this? We have to, oh, I forgot, I have this globally too. It's not just the US. These are the people who are worried about climate change. And then when they said, will it affect you? Oh, sorry, future generations and you. Look at that. So what do we have to do to address this? How can we help people connect their head to their heart? We have to start with something they already care about. It could be their kids. It could be their business. It could be something they enjoy doing outdoors. It could absolutely 100% be their faith. It could be the economic bottom line. We have to figure out what they already care about and help them see how that, the person, the places, the things they love are being affected now, here, in concrete ways that are relevant to them, as opposed to in the future, over there, in abstract ways that are not relevant. That's step number one. But there's a second step. The second step is we have to connect the heart to the hands. And it turns out that people want solutions that give us a better life and a better world, not a worse one. So when well-meaning people say, well, you have to give up everything. You cannot have children. You cannot go fly to visit your elderly parents. Heaven forbid. You definitely can't be driving. Somebody said that to me once, and I was like, well, there's no public transportation where I live. And I tried biking when I first moved to Lubbock, and I got almost run over so many times that when I got pregnant, I decided I wasn't going to do that anymore because it wasn't just my life on the line. So when we tell people all the things they can't do, we're implicitly telling them you have to go live in a cave to fix this issue. And most people are like, no, thank you. I don't think we have to tell people that because there's so many solutions that actually do make their lives better. But it's not just about that. It's also about the fact that 50% of people feel helpless. People are willing to change if they feel something called efficacy. It simply means if I do something, will it make a difference? And most people today would say no. No, it won't make a difference. I recycle, doesn't make a difference. I change my light bulbs, no difference. I have an electric vehicle, no difference. Because it's not about our actions. So we have to show people that there is a way to connect the head to the heart to the hands. And it turns out that there's something so simple to start off this process that we just skip right over it because it's so simple, we just neglect it. And how I figured this out was looking at the maps I showed you. So we left off on this map. Do you think it will affect you personally? This is pretty dark blue. There was one more map that was darker blue. Do you ever talk about it? Look at that. What is talking? It's a window into our brain, our mind. It helps people see what we're thinking about. It's a window into our heart. It helps them understand what we care about. And when we look globally, we see the same thing. This is the same map. Are you worried about climate change? I showed you before. And then this is, do you hear about it? Now, here's something really cool. And this is starting to get to the third thing I wanted to tell you. Remember, the first thing was you're not alone. The second thing is it's a rational response. The third thing is each of us can make a difference. And there is one person, in my opinion, who is a shining example of how one person with no power or wealth or influence can make a difference. And that person lives in one of those countries that is dark pink. And I do not think it's any accident the country is dark pink. I think that we are looking at the Greta Thunberg effect in this map. Does that not blow your mind? That a teenager who took a piece of white cardboard and wrote a few words on it, school strike for climate, and went and sat outside a building has actually changed the color of a country, and I think probably more than one country, by many others taking up her call. That is mind-blowing to me. And so that's why I'm absolutely convinced that the number one most important thing that each of us can do to make a difference is to talk about it. Because talking changes who we see ourselves as. It changes what people around us think. We're all social creatures. We have our antenna always sort of up, listening to everybody around us to see what they're doing, what they're talking about. It changes our social norms, our ideas of what is or isn't acceptable socially, and they've actually changed in the past quite quickly. It changes our sense of could we do this by hearing about positive solutions, and then it changes our ability and willingness to act. In a nutshell, if you don't talk about it, why would you care? If you don't care, why would you ever do anything about it? Now, I often hear, that's not enough. We're past the time for talking. We need action. And to that, I say, well, how do we ever act without communication? It is, as journalist Sarah Peach says, the fertile field in which cultural change begins. In its absence, we can't solve a problem. It's not sufficient, but it is an essential first step. And the goal of these conversations is not to dump scary information on people, but to bring them into the conversation, to engage them, to help them make the head, heart, hands connection. Recognizing that their heart is very different than ours. They might care for a different reason, and that is 100% okay. So climate changes and we get worried. What do you do now? I still want you to have the conversation, but the conversation needs to talk about the heart, why it matters to you and me for reasons that we already care about, like the Gardeners Club of America, perfect messengers on climate change because they can talk about gardens all day with each other, and gardening is being affected by climate change. One of my colleagues plays ice hockey. He talks about it with his ice hockey team when they complain about how they can't play outside anymore. People who have kids who are breathing in the toxic wildfire smoke this summer, you can certainly have conversations about that. People are complaining about how the fact that Christmas isn't white, absolutely have a conversation there. And what happens? When we talk about not only why we care, but what positive solutions there are that are already happening, people start to feel empowered. They're like, I had no idea that Texas is already getting a third of its electricity from clean energy. I had no idea that you could even do something like that yourself and sign up for a green power plan and save money. I had no idea that, plant-based burgers actually tasted pretty good. I had no idea that synagogues and churches are actually putting solar panels on the roof as part of a community solar garden. I had no idea people say that these were happening, and they're things that I could do. I don't have to be Bill Gates. So why does this work? Let's go back to the neuroscience. The human brain is built to associate forward action with a reward, not with avoiding harm. Now, I promise you this book she wrote is not about climate change. It's just about the brain. But she says, reframe your message, whatever that is, so the information you provide induces what? Hope, not dread. Whoops. So when we talk about how climate change is affecting us, the heart, and what we can do to fix it, we are onboarding people into what I think of as the positive feedback cycle. As Joan Baez said back in the 60s, she said, the antidote to anxiety and despair is action. And as Greta Thunberg said, she said, the only thing we need more than hope is action, because once we act, hope is all around us. It's a positive feedback cycle. You do a little bit, you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Oh, all these other people are doing it. Oh, well, maybe I could do a little bit more. Oh, all these other people are doing this. Oh, maybe I could join in with this. It is a positive feedback cycle, especially when we do it with other people. And the science is clear, it matters. The science literally says every action matters. Every bit of warming matters, every year matters, every choice matters. That's what the science says. I love talking about how climate solutions are also solutions for health. They're solutions for disaster resilience, solutions for food, for energy, solutions for inequalities, solutions for safety, solutions for a better future. The path to a better future lies through climate change, and we all want a better future. And when we show people that there are solutions for a better future, that's when people get excited and they get on board. So if you go to any of my social media accounts that allow me to pin something at the top, this is what you'll see. If you're worried about climate change, 2/3 of the US I'm aiming at here, if you're worried and you want to make a difference, what can you do? Number one, start a conversation that connects the head to the heart to the hands. Number two, join a climate action group like you have right here. Number three, consider where you keep your money. I'm talking about your bank, your credit card, your retirement, as well as your pension funds. Spark ideas for change where you work, where you live, where you study. Hold politicians accountable, not only through voting, but through making your voice heard, as you will be doing next month. Reduce your personal footprint and make your actions contagious by talking about them. That's a package there. As Bill McKibben says, the most important thing an individual can do right now is not be such an individual. So about a year ago, people started to ask me, well, how do I find this good news? So I started a newsletter. And let me put it in the chat here too. You can take a picture of it of the QR code with your phone, or let's see, I'll put the link here. I have two. I have a Substack, talkingclimate.ca is the Substack. And then if you just go to my website, if you just prefer good old email, just go to my website and you'll find the newsletter right there. And every week I share good news, not so good news, because we need to know what's happening and something we can do about it every single week. And I'm starting to cheat. I'm actually putting 2 or 3 pieces of good news in every week because there's literally that much good news. And when we realize how amazing things are, and I love what everybody's putting in the chat here, these are great solutions. My only question I have left is, what are we waiting for? This is something that matters to every single person on the planet. To care about climate change, you only have to do one thing, and that is a human being living on planet Earth. We're all that. So let's go. Thank you.
Wow, Katharine, thank you so much. I could listen to you for a week. Thank you very much. And I want to take a couple of questions, but at first I want to say that you really gave us the message we need to hear, which is we can all talk about it, we can do it together, and we can take action. And that's what we're getting ready to do tonight, because we're getting ready for our Tu B'Shvat virtual lobby day on January 25th. And while we're taking a couple of questions, I'm going to ask everyone to go to the chat and sign up right now for our lobby day. I just want to explain to you why it's important that you sign up tonight, because we are an all-volunteer organization, and we have volunteers who have volunteered to set up appointments for you with your senators or your Senate staff. And they can only set up those appointments when they know that you are going to participate and take action with us. So we need you to go to that link right now and sign up to participate in our virtual lobby day. Now, Katharine, I am going to take the prerogative of the first question, which is, how does talking with our legislators, with our politicians, make a difference? You highlighted the importance of talking. We want to talk to these decision makers. What can you tell us about that?
So I often get asked, how do you talk to politicians? And my answer is, they are human. They're just a special type of human. And what that means is they have things they care about too. So the key to a successful conversation is if we can figure out where to begin on something that they care about. Whether it is doing a bit of homework and figuring out what bill or position they've endorsed or supported that is good, and you can praise them for it. Politicians like that, as do every human. Whether it's a particular interest or concern of theirs or their constituents that you want to highlight. So for example, if somebody's, from Florida, you don't want to go in there talking about wildfire smoke because that's just not their concern. You want to figure out what their concern is, connect the dots, and then bring up a positive, constructive solution that they might be able to be part of. And the fact that we have a bipartisan climate caucus now with Democrats and Republicans, you're only allowed to enter, I think, if you have a partner from, a Democrat has to have a partner from a Republican side. That's one thing, one very tangible thing they can consider. There's also other pieces of legislation, information on the Inflation Reduction Act and how it's benefiting a lot of purple and red states. What climate action is clearly doing for manufacturing, blue collar areas of the US in terms of jobs growth. And, do you really want other countries to be beating the US? Because a lot of other countries are moving ahead of the US on clean energy. So don't we want to, I think that's sort of a good political argument too, but figure out what it is they care about it and come at it from their angle. All too often, we feel like there's only one gate and it's our gate. But imagine if your gate is being a birder. You care because you're a birder. Do you have to make everybody a birder to care about climate change? No. In the same way, we don't have to make everybody care for the same reason we do. We have to figure out what reason they already have, because I'm convinced that 99.9% of people on this planet already have the reason. We just have to figure out what it is and help them connect the dots.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Phyllis, I know you've been monitoring the questions in the chat. Unfortunately, we only have time for one right now, but would you like to pick one and ask Katharine?
Yeah, I think the one that I would like to talk about is your optimism. Every time I read your books, I hear from you. I'm always amazed at your optimism. How do you keep it going for all of us? Because we know that this is a long marathon and not a sprint. Somebody in the chat said that you've been optimistic about clean energy developments. It's clear that the United States' grid will not support that much new energy, and wind energy seems to have stalled. So, how do we continue to face the wind that's against us? You're muted.
There we go. That relates directly to the top question that was upvoted. So if you don't mind, let's pair those, because the top question was, is it too late? And then the question that you just asked is, how do you keep hope alive? So many people think that hope begins with positive thinking. I don't think it does. I think we could all think positively until the end. And if you sort of, bury your head in the sand, so to speak, like the metaphorical ostrich, and cover your ears and cover your eyes, we're just going to be slightly happier until doom strikes. I think hope begins with a realistic, clear-eyed look at how bad it is. Because you don't need hope if everything's fine. You need hope when things are not fine. And things are not fine, which means we need hope. So step number one is, it's bad. And there are some changes that have already happened that are essentially irreversible, especially over our lifetimes. It's like we've been smoking a pack of cigarettes a day and we have impaired lung capacity. We can't jog. We certainly aren't going to be running any Olympics. But we don't have emphysema, we don't have lung cancer, and we're not dead yet. So the second ingredient for hope is realizing that there's something better for us. A better future is possible. The third ingredient is a path to get from A to B, because you can't have realistic hope if there's no way to get there. And then the last part of hope is figuring out how each of us have a role to play in moving us along that pathway. That is the last ingredient. And so I practice hope. I practice it like a discipline or a muscle. I look for hopeful stories. I think about them. I share them. I talk about them. And that is exactly why I made my newsletter, because when all that hopeful information is coming into our brains, that helps to balance out the rational, not so good information. And my ideal mix, just to be 100% clear, is 50-50. My ideal mix is 50% not so good news, 50% good news, because we have to understand what's at risk, but we also have to know what to do about it. Unfortunately, today, though, you could have 1% good news and 99% bad news, and people are like, oh, that's hopium. But that's not the way our brains are wired. Remember what Tali Sharot said? She said that we are wired to move forwards towards something better. So we have to introduce hope in our message if we want people to move forwards. Doom and gloom has taken us as far as we can get, and we're quite far. Most people are worried. But if we actually want to move forward towards fixing this thing, we need to know that our actions matter.
Katharine, we're going to have you back because we need to hear from you on a regular basis. I want to really thank you. I want to recommend to everyone to buy your book. Saving Us is the name of the book. What a great name for a book. And let's all go out and read it. And now I have to thank you. And I'm going to move to Rabbi Melanie Aaron, who's going to tell us about the plans for the Lobby Day. I want to say we're very sorry about the problems with the link in the chat, but the correct link is now in the chat. I'll paste it again. Please go there and register for the Lobby Day.
All right, so I don't think we could have had a better speaker to prepare us for this. What are we trying to do? We are trying to move people from blue into green. As we've heard, we're trying to remind people that doing something is the best way to deal with all of that angst and worry and so on that we're experiencing. So we are very excited about the upcoming virtual Lobby Day on January 25th for Tu B'Shvat, for the Jewish New Year of the Trees. And here we go. I hope that you will sign up. We are really pleased that we have a wonderful beginning to our Lobby Day. Some of you have participated before for Tisha B'Av this summer, even though we were very worried about getting people's attention this summer. We had 200 participants. We visited Senate offices from 27 states, Democrats and Republicans, and we want to challenge ourselves to do even better this time. We don't have the problem of summer vacation. I know it's the end of December, but in January, we'll all come back and be raring to go. This is a list of the organizations that are co-sponsors of our Lobby Day. If you belong to a Jewish organization and you don't see it on this list, talk to us because we would very much like to include you. And we also have the screenshot, and it's really kind of interesting. We had a lot of trouble getting an appointment with this particular senator. This is Senator Braun. He's the lower middle square from Indiana, a Republican. His office said there was no way he could meet with us, but they were having a virtual open house. And if we wanted to, we could come to the virtual open house. Guess what? We went, we were the only ones there. And in that way, we were able to really have a good conversation with him. So take a moment, look for your organization. There's no financial obligation in joining us, but we'd love to have you join us. We are going to lobby on 3 issues, and don't worry if you don't get all the details tonight. Next month, our entire webinar will be about the lobbying. We just wanted to let you know where we reached consensus. We have to be very strategic about this. There are a million things that need our attention, but we work with allies and we look to see what might be achievable. The Restoring America's Wildlife Act should be familiar to you. We have lobbied on this before. It has been reintroduced. It has bipartisan support. It will make a significant difference. And so we hope this time we'll be able to pull it through and get it over the top. We're also lobbying again about EQIP, the Agricultural Resilience Act. The Farm Bill is one of those things that used to be done as a matter of course, but hasn't because of the dysfunction currently in Congress. It is a very important bill. I had a wonderful experience. I was flying from Cincinnati back to Washington, D.C. A big, beefy farmer sat next to me. He told me he was a lobbyist. I was imagining to myself all kinds of terrible things. I got into a conversation with him. Guess what? He and all his neighbors have changed to more sustainable practices. And that's what he had come to Washington to lobby about. So this is a second very important issue. And then the one that I am personally most enthusiastic about is environmental justice for all. It will probably not get through in this particular year, but we need co-sponsors, and it really picks up on our values. Some of you were with us when we had a webinar talking about the justice issues that are involved in environmental experience, that people, Black and brown, poor, experience environmental degradation in a way that some of us are more protected from, all of the injustice related to that. So we want to get more co-sponsors on board for this. We are very much looking forward to all of your participation, and then we will provide lots more information. We'll set up your appointment, we'll provide training. Do not be nervous about this. There will be a team leader, but we know this is something that you can do. And by talking about it, you will influence your neighbors as well. So I'm going to pass the baton now over to Judy, also a member of our steering committee. And she's going to talk about how we can connect our head and heart to our hands through social media. Here we go.
Okay, thank you. I'm Judy Burl-Fine, and I'm on the steering committee. And I think you're going to put those slides back up, Melanie, so that I can talk through them, or Amy. What we're going to do now is a chance for all of you to take action and follow what Dr. Hayhoe just talked to us so much about. You've started by signing up for the webinar, for the Lobby Day. It'll be fabulous to have you, and you now have an opportunity to talk even more to your friends, because what we would like you to do is to think of a friend or a family member who would also like to join us on the Lobby Day, and craft an email to them now, inviting them to participate. So what you see in front of you are some of the states. We saw a map of the US earlier, and really, there's a lot of participation in this group from both coasts and not so much from the center of the country. And all these states listed here are states where there's senators on important committees related to the legislation that we're going to be lobbying about. So if you know someone in Alaska, Alabama, Arkansas, Arizona, or any of these states listed in front of you, this is a great opportunity to reach out to them and ask them if they want to participate in our lobby day. All they have to do is show up. They don't have to make the appointment. It's a great experience. If they're a little bit nervous, they might not even have to talk at all. They can just listen if there are other more experienced people there. And then on the bottom of the slide, we have listed other senators on key committees, but we are confident we will have people from California, Georgia, Illinois, and all the rest of those states. So now is your chance. If you can go to the next slide, we'll give you, here's something to lead you along. As I mentioned, you can write to a friend or a cousin or someone who you met who's concerned or worried about climate and wants to do something positive. Here is an opportunity for you and them to make a big difference. And here's some sample text. You can say to your friend your participation in Jewish Earth Alliance's Tu B'Shvat virtual lobby day, January 25th, could make a big difference. It's a half an hour commitment to be online with an aide to your senator and talk about climate legislation that will help us and our planet. And we from Jewish Earth Alliance will provide all the information and training you need. So I hope that you will sign up right now, and you will also think of someone in your head, take a minute, close your eyes. We can go back to the other slide so you can look at those states and think, do I know someone in Oklahoma who might want to do this? And I know we're running just up to the end of the hour, so you might have to actually write your email as soon as you hang up, but it would be amazing if all of you signed up for Lobby Day and brought a friend. Thank you. And if you have questions, I think most of you have figured it out, you can put them in the chat.
We want to thank all of you for being with us tonight. 57 of you have signed up to lobby with us, so we're really, really excited. If you haven't signed up yet, you know what to do. I want to thank everyone who helped us with tonight's program: Moshe, Catherine, Melanie, Phyllis, Amy, Devora, and all of you for coming. As Jews, in moments of danger and opportunity, we encourage each other with the words that Moses spoke to his successor Joshua when he took responsibility for leading the children of Israel to the promised land. Those words were chazak ve'ematz. Be strong and courageous. Our future depends on our strength and courage. I hope that you will all join us to take action on Tu B'Shvat and every month when we have an action alert for a more just, sustainable, and healthy world for generations to come. Chazak ve'ematz. Please sign up yourself, invite your friends to come for our virtual lobby day. We will be having one more training in January, which will address the specifics of lobbying, so you'll all feel well prepared to do it. Just sign up so we know you are with us. Thank you so much. Chazak ve'ematz, and good night.